All right, let's dive into a text with a name that just sounds powerful, the Fetha negest. It literally means the law of the kings. And trust me, the story behind this ancient legal code is every bit as epic as its name.
I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. This wasn't some old, dusty book sitting on a shelf. We're talking about a single text that was the supreme law of the Ethiopian Empire for over 500 years. It shaped literally everything, from the biggest decisions an emperor made all the way down to the daily life of a farmer.
So that's the big question, right? When a single document has that much influence for that long, you've got to ask, what in the world is in it? And where did it even come from? Well, the answer? It's probably not what you're thinking. Okay, so at its heart, the Fetha negest is what's called a theocratic legal code. Now, what does that mean? It basically means it smashes together religious law and state law into one powerful whole. So this wasn't just a rule book. No. It was seen as a divinely inspired guide for pretty much everything: justice, how to rule, and how to live your life. And this is where the story takes its first big turn. You'd think the most important legal text in Ethiopian history would have been written in Ethiopia, right? Makes sense, but nope. Its journey actually starts hundreds of miles away with the Coptic Christian community back in 13th century Egypt. Wild. Okay, check out this timeline. It really shows you the incredible journey this book went on. It starts out around 1240, written in Arabic in Egypt. Then, a couple of centuries later, in the 15th century, it makes this massive leap. It gets translated into the ancient Ge'ez language and becomes the absolute bedrock of Ethiopian life. But get this, it stays in power until the 1960s. The 1960s. That is just an unbelievable run for any legal document. So you have to wonder, how did one single book manage to cover every single aspect of life? What was the secret sauce? How was this thing structured so it could handle everything from church business all the way to criminal law? Well, the answer is actually pretty brilliant. The Fetha negest is basically two books rolled into one. You've got part one, which is all about church law, everything related to spiritual life and religious practice. Then you have part two, which is secular law. That's the state, civil matters, and the day-to-day lives of regular people. This two-part system was the key to its incredible reach. And this shows you that split perfectly. Look at this. On one side, you've got the rules for bishops and priests, and on the other, laws about marriage and kings. It's like a perfect visual map of how this one book managed to organize an entire society, covering, both heaven and earth in a way. So if we zoom in on part one, the spiritual stuff, we're talking about the rules for the church and its holy books, the regulations for bishops, priests, and deacons, even rules for monks and nuns. And it also included advice and principles for all the faithful. Then you flip over to part two, the secular world, and this is where it gets into the real nitty-gritty of everyday life. Things like marriage, loans, and sales. It dealt with really heavy topics like liberty, slavery, and property. And, really importantly, it laid out the duties and the rights of the kings themselves. Plus, of course, punishments for thieves and other crimes. It really truly touched every part of a person's life. And let's be clear, a text this comprehensive wasn't just a set of guidelines. Oh no, this was the law, and it had the highest imperial seal of approval. The authority of this book and the authority of the emperor, they were basically one and the same. Hey, and you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to this quote from Emperor Haile Selassie himself. He said this in 1968, long after the book was officially replaced, mind you, and he called it venerated for many centuries and an invaluable source of legal principles. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about how deep its influence really was. Which brings us to its lasting legacy. Because even though it was replaced by modern laws, you can still feel the echoes of the Fetha negest in Ethiopia today. It's really about how an ancient text continues to shape a modern nation. So when you boil it all down, what's the enduring impact? Well, first, it was the foundation of law in Ethiopia for more than 500 years. It also deeply wove together Ethiopian national identity with law and Orthodox Christianity. And because of that, it became the historical foundation that modern Ethiopian law was built upon. And even today, it's still an absolutely vital document for anyone trying to understand African legal and religious history. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. How does a 700-year-old text continue to shape a nation's identity today? I mean, when something has been the legal and moral bedrock of a culture for that long, does its influence ever really disappear? It's definitely something to chew on.